Good morning, everybody. Excited today for the conversation that we're going to have here on Breaking Absolutes. Before I get rolling, just a reminder, if you're enjoying what we do here in terms of highlighting artists whose work we think is deserving of a larger audience for a multitude of reasons, and the way we try and discuss and dimensionalize these artists to try and do precisely that. Follow us, subscribe, help us just continue to be able to bring on the caliber of artists that we do in an effort to try and grow the category. With that said, today I have Arjen with me. He's going to have to keep me honest on pronunciations. It's maybe my weak suit. But Ayreon is such a celebrated and such an accomplished composer. It's really quite remarkable. If you know him well, then you know this information. If you maybe only heard of one record or two records or a song, what I'd like to do briefly is to frame some of this before I bring him on for our chat. Um, you know, I won't be able to do everything because his career is long and varied. But I want to do this just to kind of highlight the strength of I guess his determination and the variety of work that his career encompasses. He's released 26 studio albums, and some of these numbers could even be old now, but it'll give you a sense. 4 live albums, 2 EPs, 17 singles. He's worked with other artists that you may have heard of: Shadow Gallery, After Forever, Within Temptation, Avantasia. He appears, as the man plays virtually every instrument. Arjen does, so he has a lot of versatility in what he can do as a composer and as a performer. And then he himself, in addition to the maybe most celebrated Ayreon records, has started Star One, Guilt Machine, The Gentle Storm, Ambient, and Stream of Passion. And we'll talk a little bit about each of these in varying depths, just for want of time. But the larger point here is that he finds amazing players to help him fulfill a vision for a record, very often a narratively driven record, which is people come to know as a passion of mine, which is why I love Arjen's work so much. I can't go into all of the many ways or places that his work has charted in his homeland, but also in many countries. But let me just give you one takeaway, and then I'll point you in the notes to his Wikipedia page. But increasingly, his work is finding higher and higher chart positions in more and more markets. This is really this defies conventional wisdom with music careers, where usually there's attrition over time. He's going the other direction. He's finding audience as he continues to write, which I find remarkable. So with that as set up, I would like to bring Ayreon on and have our chat. Ayreon, welcome.
Hi, Peter. Hi. That was a beautiful introduction.
Oh, thank
Totally
you.
not worthy.
Well, I find often that artists are so focused on the music, which is rightfully so,
It should be, yeah.
that they don't often look back at the body or career of their work. And so I take
I rarely look back. It's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's healthy. But when you take the moment to do it, or when someone like me gets to do it, it's really quite impressive. In fact,
Yeah, for me too. It's like, wow, he's right.
it's impossible to hold all in my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was reviewing some numbers, and I was like, boy, Ayreon is charting better and better with every album. And I think that's probably says something about the maturity of your writing over time. But I also think you're gathering like this just amazing musicians to your work, because they're people want to work with you. And we'll talk about some of the names like Russell Allen and Floor Jansen,
Mhm.
because the music is so wonderful. And
Thank you.
and as a consequence, great music performed by great performers, finds fans. Um, that's the preamble, but it's deserved. It's deserved, and I like to articulate it right up front. Um, so let's just go way back to the beginning, if we can, just for a moment. As a very young person, what was it that was the impetus for your growth into music? Were you did you perform in your childhood? Did you have musical parents? Like, what was the thing that sent you on the path?
No, my family wasn't into music at all. No one was really.
Okay,
But I grew up in the 60s, which of course is a great time to grow up, so much great music.
right.
I mean, I once did a cover album with only 60 songs called Strange Hobby. And like you have the Beatles and the Kings and Donovan and T-Rex and so much. So yeah, I think the Beatles, was probably my first love of music. I heard
Yeah.
Help, I think it was, yeah, in '66 when I must have been 6 years old only. But yeah, the Beatles started it all for me, and then
It's
slowly, yeah,
no, go ahead.
and then slowly I just started discovering like Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and yeah, that's where it all started. I mean, that's the holy trinity for me: Beatles, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin. There you go.
Yeah, that's a hard trinity to beat. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I was going to exactly mention your Strange Hobby covers. I went and listened to that
Whoa,
in
whoa.
preparation for this,
Yeah,
and it made sense to me in some of your bio information to see that you were a Beatles fan, and then to see that you would go back to some of this older rock music and sort of treat it with
right.
your own
Yeah.
sensibility.
Well, your formative years are usually in your teens. I
Yeah.
started buying albums when I was 10, 11, so that was 70, 71, which was a great time for music as well.
Yeah.
And then at some point I started going back to the 60s and discovering how great it was, how experimental, how original. And that's when I did the Strange Hobby thing. Also, I just did a very complicated album, and I was like, hey, I want to do a very simple covers album, just put on my guitar and just go for it. And
Yeah.
then I did Strange Hobby all on my own, basically. I played all the instruments and sang everything, and
It's
it was
a
fun to do.
That's a remarkable gift all by itself to be able to play all the instruments. And I when I listened to the record, it was like a palate cleanser. It was this wonderful sort of different music appreciation, sonic experience. Some of that music I loved. I mean, I'm a huge Simon and Garfunkel fan, and
Oh
you
yeah, yeah,
did "I
yeah,
Am a
yeah.
Rock" on
I'm a
that
Rock. I
record.
did, yeah.
Yeah. So
I love Simon and Garfunkel. It's amazing.
yeah, and you're
You mentioned Russell earlier. I remember we drove to a gig together once, and in the car we just sang Simon and Garfunkel songs for 2 hours, and he
yeah.
knew them all. We even did one on stage. I think it's in the behind the scenes. We did the Boxer. I am
Oh
just a poor
wow.
man, though my story seldom
That's a
told.
great
Yeah,
song.
that's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, he has that sort of that exuberance to just pop. I had him on the show here a couple of weeks ago, and
I saw a little part of it. It was 7 hours, so I didn't see
oh,
all of it.
it
Sorry.
was he and I connected in a way that I rarely connect, and so we just
Cool,
continued
cool.
to prattle on.
Yeah, why
But
not?
we got talking about a '60s band and into the '70s called Bread, and
Oh yes, yeah, 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 yeah.
I loved their music, and
Guitar Man, right? Was Brad?
yeah, and
It's a guitar man. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And then and I'm blanking on the song now. But as soon as I said it, Russell just started to sing one of their
You're
songs
right, right. Yeah,
because
yeah,
he just has the personality. Like, let's just do it. So I can
yeah, yeah, yeah.
imagine you and he in the car
Oh yes, oh
singing
yeah, yeah,
Simon and Garfunkel.
yeah. We have the same roots exactly. I guess that's how we got in contact. He heard Electric Castle and he loved it so much, and he was on the phone to me like every day. And at the same time, the manager of Symphony X sent me an album, and I was like, "Oh my God, who is this singer?" So it was a mutual
Yeah,
appreciation, which is the best,
yeah,
when that
yeah.
happens.
I'm. It's very. I'm. I'm happy that you made each other's acquaintance, because
Yeah, yeah.
You are such a good composer for narrative, and that's something we'll spend some time talking about, because it's a personal passion of mine.
Mhm.
Narrative done with music. And he has such a, is for all of the career he's had, it's, I think he's not celebrated enough. And so giving him a format that you have to a canvas on which to
Mm.
present his voice,
Mm.
it's just, it's a wonderful pairing, and I think it's paid great dividends.
Oh yes.
And he's not the only one, but um you in your bio information, it says you got sort of fixated on guitar because of Richie Blackmore. Was he your first sort of guitar connection?
I think so, yeah. I think it was Alvin Lee for some reason. I don't know why, because everyone said he's the fastest guitar player alive, you know. And I loved their album recorded live 10 years after. But I think it was when I saw Blackmore and I heard Made in Japan. I think that was the point where I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. Because I think it started out with the Sweet, with the Sweet, T-Rex, David Bowie, Alice Cooper, you know, the whole glam rock. I mean, that was what was happening in the 70s.
Yeah.
And then I got into a band, which you asked earlier. It was a playback band. We were called the Flying Potatoes. And of course, I was the singer. And it was silly. It was just, but we were really popular. We played at a lot of schools, you know. We played all Alice Cooper and David Bowie and Slade and all that kind of stuff. But we playbacked it. And then one of the pupils came to me. It's nice what you guys are doing, you know, but that glam rock is for sissies. And listen to this. And he gave me Made in Japan. And that's when I heard Blackmore, you know, and his melody and his timing and his improvisation. And
Yeah.
that's when I decided, like, okay, I want to play myself too.
Yeah. Boy, I'm glad that happened.
Yeah.
You know, it would have been something else, but you found your calling there. I read some of your backstory, and you make a comment that I'm paraphrasing, but basically um, has something to do with making music is the meaning of life, and making music gives life meaning. Did I?
Yeah, it was a phrase I came up. The meaning of life is to give life meaning.
That's right.
That was, yeah.
Yeah.
I also use it in my lyrics. It's kind of like yeah, my credo.
And I think the extrapolation is the way you in particular give life meaning is with music.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Music is everything for me. It always has been, and it always will be.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a choice, you know. It wasn't a choice like, what should I do with my life? You know, it was clear that's what I want to do. And
Yeah.
sometimes I get people asking me, fans, like, hey man, I have a good job, you know, but I play a little bit of guitar too. You think I should give up my job to be in a band? You know, I would always say no. You know, if you're even contemplating that,
Yeah.
you know, then
Yeah.
you just really gotta want it, and there's no other option, you know. And you gotta go through hell. I mean, so did I, you know, living with the whole band in one room for years, and it didn't matter, you know. It didn't matter at all because you had the music.
Yeah. Would is one of those bands your early band, Bodine, where you guys were?
No, Bodine was the first professional band I had.
Okay.
No, that was when I was like 15 until 20. You know,
Okay.
I had a lot of bands. A band called Mover. That's basically the band where I first started recording with them, and that was the Hungry Days. and Bodine, they already made an album. They made an album in 1980, and I joined, and so it was a professional band. It was very cool for me to be in a professional band, to be able to play live and make albums. You know, that was always my dream.
The part of what I read, I think, and I'm paraphrasing, suggested it's a place where you sort of had the opportunity to really tighten up your playing, but also
Bodine,
recognize,
yeah.
yeah, Bodine, but also recognized that I guess the band was a lot older and you guys were just in a
Yeah,
different headspace.
they were like 10 years older than me. and it was actually the drum teacher of the drummer of my band, and they were rehearsing like really small cellar, you know, and I went down that cellar and I saw them play, and I was, oh my God, if there's cellars all over Holland, you know, with bands as good as this, what am I doing? I'm going to give
Yeah.
up, you know, this is so good. But it wasn't, you know, they were extremely good, and I was lucky. And they lost their singer, so I really wanted to join that band. And those were the days of Iron Maiden and Judas Priest with two guitar players. They only had one
Yeah.
guitar player, so I was really, I was really sly. I went there to audition as a singer, and I knew I wasn't good enough because they had an amazing singer who sounded like Paul Rodgers and David Coverdale, you know, that kind of singer.
Yeah.
And I just auditioned as a singer, and brought my guitar, and I was like, yeah, I also brought my guitar, and you know, and plugged it in and just started playing along, and they thought I was a horrible singer, but they loved me as a guitar player, and also I immediately, they started playing songs, and when I was singing, I immediately made up these lyrics and melodies, and they were like, oh, whoa, this guy can maybe help us write songs and stuff. So yeah, all in all, they accepted me, and I made 2 albums with them. But they were like really AC/DC fans, you know, that was the style they wanted to go in. So I learned to play tight, really, I couldn't do that, you know. But I wanted more, you know, as good as a band as AC/DC is, you know, it's not my style, you know.
Right.
We mentioned Blackmore. I was more like Rainbow and progressive stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So at some point, yeah, I had to leave the nest, so to speak.
And that's just kind of to walk through the progression a little bit. You wound up in a band called Vengeance.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Well, they were like way younger than Bodine, even younger than me. And there I was the old guy, the old professional, experienced guy. And in Vengeance, I could do what I want, you know. I could experiment up to a degree, you know, because you have to do concessions to band members.
Sure.
You can't just do whatever you want if you're in a band. So I was kind of limited, but I could also already do some of my own stuff, you know, and yeah, that was a cool time. Yeah.
I you know, for all of the music, there is one little nugget I have to ask you about.
Sure.
There's a note here. This is more like the flavor of life, but apparently there was a German concert in Germany, and there was some hotel damage.
Oh my God, you know everything. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
They wouldn't let you leave the country.
30,000 marks. Yeah.
Holy cow! What did you break?
It was
everything.
It was terrible. It was terrible. Well, they, you know, I think it was exaggerated, but yeah, they didn't have us leave the country, and we had to. They took our amps and stuff like that, and it was terrible.
It's, you know, it's I shared that and ask you about it as contrast to, you know, obviously there's these stories. You're not the only one, but to a music that evolves from your compositional mind and you know, your playing to a very sort of advanced place where there's a great deal of clearly thought in how you marry telling story to the music. And that would be my I know you did a solo record, which, by the way, I think is underappreciated. I went and was able to find that. And
it's the album I'm the most proud of. It's really, that's 100% me. Oh, not Pool of Sorrow. No, that I was kind of lost there. I mean, there's a couple of good songs, and there's the basis of Ayreon in there. That's basically how Ayreon started. Even one of the lyrics already kind of told the story of Ayreon. Now I was talking about my second solo album, but anyway, yeah, Pools of Sorrow was I was really lost, in the band. We would, as I said, we were doing concessions to everyone, to the record company, to the audience, and to band members. And I was lost, like, what do I want?
Yeah.
And I didn't know anymore. So I recorded some stupid country song called Midnight Train, on a midnight train. It was silly. And the record company picked it up. They said, it's great. We want to release it as a single. Can you do a whole album? So then I did my solo album, and I put it together in 2 weeks, I think. And there were like weird songs on it. And the record company was like, oh my God, because was all totally different from this little country song that they first heard. So that album totally flopped, because the fans of my bands like Vengeance and Bodine, they didn't get it.
They
It
didn't get it.
wasn't a metal album.
But it did have the shadings,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
I
true.
heard it, of
True.
what would become like
Yeah.
more of your life's work.
Totally.
And we'll talk
yeah.
about your other solo album in a moment. Let's transition to the Ayreon years. The first. By the way, is the distinction in how we pronounce your name and the band name Arjen versus Ayreon?
Yeah. No one believes it. Everyone thinks it's based on my name, Ayreon, but it isn't actually. It was the first album was called Aries, but I thought it was pronounced the star sign, because
Right.
I thought it was pronounced Arius. So we had this part in the song going Arius, and then I had an English singer, Ian Perry, sing on the album. He said, no, it's pronounced Aries. And I was like, Aries? That's not cool at all. And so I had to change it. And then I came up with Ayreon. So it was like I wanted something old fashioned in there. That's the AY in the beginning. And I wanted something modern in there. That's the ON at the end, electron. And that's how I came to Ayreon. So
okay,
it's
makes
got nothing
perfect
to do
sense
with my
to
name.
me. It makes sense to me. You got your own etymology there.
Yeah,
that.
true.
That's great.
True.
So before we talk about some of the specifics in the records, I want to ask you kind of an overarching question. Most even of the Ayreon records take place in a fictional universe, which I find fascinating, because there are other storytellers, most of them that I know in the fiction world, who create like a macroverse in which multiple stories and novels will get told. I find it remarkable that you've done that with music. There may be a precedent for that, but I actually can't think of one. What was was that a design from the beginning?
No way. No,
Okay.
It was baby steps.
Okay.
Really, it wasn't at all. It was just, we did the bands, we didn't make it. Then I had another band, but the whole hair metal stuff of the 80s was gone. Then I did my solo album that flopped. That totally flopped. And then I was like, okay, what am I gonna do now? Let's do something that I really like. And I don't give a shit what people think of it, what anyone thinks of it. And probably it will never be released, but I want to make that one album that I really like. And if I ever have kids, I didn't, but if I would have, I could have told them, this is daddy, this is what daddy likes. And yeah, it was based on stuff like Jesus Christ Superstar, Tommy, War of the Worlds, Journey to the Center of the Earth, like you say, very narrative stuff.
Yeah.
And it's called The Final Experiment, because it was really my final experiment. It was like, okay, let's do this album, and then then I don't know anymore what to do. And to my surprise and everyone's surprise, there was an audience for it, a totally invisible audience that no one knew about, because they were the days of grunge, days of Pearl Jam and Nirvana and stuff like that. So no one was waiting for a progressive rock opera, but there was an audience, and yeah, the rest is history.
So first of all, kudos for taking sort of a creative risk there, when you didn't know what else to do, but you kind of put it all on the line. And I think,
It's true.
probably did, created defining music for your career.
Yeah. And to answer your question, it wasn't a master plan. I
Yeah,
just wanted to make a story like Tommy with one main character. And the first Ayreon album actually is kind of dodgy, because there's the character Ayreon, there's the character Merlin, and they're sung by different singers. I didn't know how it worked and stuff like that.
yeah.
So it really wasn't a master plan. Then I did the second album, Actual Fantasy, which was totally different. It didn't have a concept. It wasn't part of the story. Then I did the third album, Ayreon album, and then suddenly the first album came involved, and then suddenly this story started developing themselves, and all the albums and stories started merging, and really it wasn't the plan. It just happened.
When you so a question, now that you've matured this this ability to write these sort of large scale
Yeah.
stories and compose them, do you and you have, you have the reputation and the connections now to invite musicians of just the highest caliber to participate. When you cast it, I guess, are you thinking of specific voices to fulfill like your vision for a particular character? How much do you sort of consider the personnel for the part?
Yeah, I work in a very different way than anyone else. I don't have a story yet. I don't have lyrics yet. I don't have singers yet. I just start with the music, because then I'm totally free to do. I'm not limited. It's not like, okay, this is story. The music has to fit that. No, I still think the music is the most important thing. So it should start with the music. And then like for a year, I record all these little ideas. I put them together, and then I let the music inspire me to come up with a story. Like the first album had these medieval parts, but also these very modern parts. So I was like, okay, I want a story that plays in the future, but also in the Middle Ages. Then I make a list of all the singers I like. I still have it, it's got 200 singers on it, I think.
Wow.
and I just think, okay, which singers would fit the music, which singers would fit the story. That's very important. I mean, if it's a science fiction story, you already know that some singers are not going to be interested to be on it. So so then I contact the singers, and especially in the early days, I could contact 50 singers and maybe 5 singers said yes, because they didn't know who I was yet, and I didn't have a lot of money yet to pay them. And then I would actually base the character in the story on the singer. So it's not the other way around. I got this story with a tall blonde guy. So I needed a tall blonde guy for a singer. It's like, okay, I got this tall blonde guy, so I got to write a part for him. And a good example of that is on my album Electric Castle. I managed to get Fish, which was basically the first really big artist that I got on an album. So yeah, I especially wrote a part for him into the story. So he's the Highlander, the Scottish Highlander. It wasn't the other way around. I'm searching for a Scottish person. Let's ask Fish. It was the other way around. So it's a weird way of working. And then I spread the singers out over the album. So I think there's a heavy part. This could be cool for Russell. There's a very high operatic part that could be cool for Floor. So I first spread the singers, and then I adapt the story to where I put the singers. So it's weird that it works.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense to me. I wrote a rock opera, and
okay, cool.
The process of it is it's a big undertaking, and so I'm particularly intrigued by the approach you take. I think it's fascinating. But I want to go back to you named Into the Electric Castle. This was the first record that really kind of hit some commercial success. Am I right about
Yeah.
that?
Well, the first one, of course, was a good start. Was a good
Okay, the
start, and the
Final
second
Experiment.
one flopped. Right, Final Experiment. Actual Fantasy kind of flopped. It sold less than Final Experiment, and then I was like, I got to do something huge now. I got to do something so over the top that people will either hate or love. And then I did Electric Castle, and yeah, then that was really the breakthrough. I think also because I got people like Fish,
Yeah.
and I had a little money from the first couple of albums, so I could pay for a guy like Fish because he was not cheap. I can tell you
Yeah,
that.
I'm sure.
And I had Anneke van Giersbergen, of course, who was in the Gathering in those days, who was really still is a big name.
Yeah, yeah.
I had Thijs van Leer from Focus on flute, so I had all these big names on it, and that really worked. I mean, firstly, of course, they're amazing musicians, but secondly, also the press was like, "Whoa, the Fish and Anneke and all these people are on the album. It must be good." Why else would this guy be on the album? And fans the same thing, especially fans of Marillion were like, "Oh, let's listen to Fish."
Yeah.
And that just worked. It wasn't something thought of by me, it just worked. And it was because I didn't play live, but it was great promotion, just having these well-known people on my album
Yeah.
was promotion in itself.
It makes a lot of sense on on a marketing level, on an artistic level, and even from a creative choice level. You mentioned Annika. I first heard the Mandy Lion record that she
Right,
did
yeah,
with the
yeah,
Gathering,
yeah. Strange
and
Machines,
yeah, and there's a cut there called Sand and Mercury, and there's a
Right.
breakdown section in the center where it's just so haunting and achingly sort of um the woman is just expressing the end of life, and it just, I can still hear every note she sang.
Yeah.
And those kinds of moments telegraph something about the gift of a vocalist. And I'm sure
Oh,
that
yes.
you then know, okay, well, I know how this voice can really, really help me communicate
Oh,
my
yes. Oh,
story.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes. I heard her and I was like, oh my God, I gotta have her. And it was hard to get her because she was big with the Gathering those days, and
yeah.
they didn't want her to do anything else,
Mm,
which I can kind of understand. She's our singer, and we don't want her to do other projects.
yeah.
So it really took me a long time to convince her and to convince the band to do it.
It's one of the
Um,
things, one of the reasons I do this show is, uh, I think most musicians are more than one thing. And I'm happy if I can disabuse a fan of a particular band and musicians in that band from the idea that that's the only way they should support or listen to that artist. Because
mhm.
invariably they have other kinds of music they want to make. I spoke with Floor just yesterday, and during
Oh, cool.
lockdown, she's been exploring a whole different kind of music than anything she's noted for. And I think
Cool.
that's really exciting. So and your music has this sort of variety too. Part of that is endemic to the fact that you make a progressive style of music, which allows for lots of instrumentation and
Right.
dynamic changes. It's not as rigid, I think, as genre as others. So you pick I think the perfect genre to play in, to tell these stories. Not to suggest that you had a choice, like most people who are into rock and metal, they weren't going to be a country artist.
Mhm.
So, so, uh, so you've come now to some success with Into the Electric Castle. And by the way, a quick note there: the I don't, maybe I'm drawing a correlation that doesn't exist, but part of the narrative focuses around 8 different characters in different locations and time periods. And it has this kind of journey sensibility to it. It reminded me a lot of the Canterbury Tales, this idea of different characters having to move towards something. Did you have any sort of literary precedent for this, or is this just something that came to you as a story out of your mind?
Well, I'm ashamed to tell you that I've never read a book in my life.
Oh
It's
no.
awful. So definitely it didn't come from books.
Okay.
I wait for the movie. It's terrible. But yes, I'm a huge movie fan, and I'm a huge TV series fan. You know, every evening, and that's why scheduling the interview was so hard for me, because the evenings, you know, I work 364 days a year. I don't have holidays. I don't have weekends, but my evenings are holy. You know,
I hear
that's
you.
when
Hey,
that's
what's
when
the
I lie down in front of in my special electric chair with a huge screen and speakers coming from everywhere. And you know, that's when I dream away. So yeah, to answer your question, it must have been yeah, a lot of movies I heard, and a lot of um, albums I heard, of course.
yeah,
I don't know if there's a, yeah, maybe Jesus Christ Superstar. I think that one had a big impact on me.
yeah. I have to know.
The one with Ian Gillan.
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, well, now that you've said it, I have to know, what's the one day of year you take off?
Did I say?
You said you work 364 days a year.
Well, maybe that's when I go to the sauna with a friend or something. Yeah, it's true. It's maybe once a year. It's awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awful.
Well,
I'm such a recluse. It's terrible.
it makes sense though that given the output, you know, the volume of material you create, that you
Yeah.
have this work ethic that keeps you going.
That's true, because people think I work really hard, but it's not. I just work a lot, and I don't have a family, and I don't have a job, and I don't have a hobby, nothing. So it's all I do.
Yeah.
But it's not like I work crazy all through the night and stuff like that. No, it's I
Yeah.
take it easy.
It's a creative principle that I see play out in my fiction life and in my music life. And that is, if you just have the diligence to attend to the music with some sort of regularity,
Totally,
you're
totally.
going to,
Yeah.
over time, it's just, you're going to produce.
Totally. I have my rituals every day. It's silly. It's up to the minute.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
It's
good.
terrible.
You're
It's good for me. It may be not so good for my partner, but she
well,
had to get used to it. But
yeah.
it
I
all
know
makes sense.
others that are very regimented like that. It doesn't surprise me to hear that, just given, not just the amount of music, but the complexity of music
Yeah.
that you produce. So that's that all makes
And
sense to
really,
me.
again, it's baby steps. I always start like really easy. I mean, I love "Wish You Were Here" of Pink Floyd so much, and it's so simple. And
Yeah.
every time I try to make an album like that, like really simple, few chords, little guitar here, beautiful melody. That's, but then it grows and it grows, and I add and I add, and then this singer, and then this guitar player, and then it becomes very complicated.
Yeah.
Really, it's step by step. I could never do this. I mean, you have musicians like Neil Morse or Ian Anderson. They just put him in a room. Put Ian Anderson, and in a week he writes thick as a brick. It's such an amazing genius. I could never do that. I really need my time for it, and it really has to grow from something small to something huge in the end.
Yeah. It's fascinating to hear about your process, and I think as many musicians as there are processes, because everybody comes at the work a little different.
Mhm.
Let me just ask you about the other side of this coin. So you describe yourself as a bit of a recluse, certainly
Totally
dedicated to your work.
Yeah.
I have this vision of you working meticulously through the day, and then watching great movies in your chair at night.
Right.
So there's, for the longest period of time, Arjen really wasn't, or hadn't done live music, and that
Right.
changed a bit about 4 years ago. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Well, I toured a lot when I was a kid, ever since I was 18. So ever since 1978, I've been touring. And then I toured for 15, 20 years until I was 32. in 1992. Yeah. And I was tired of it, the playing live. It wasn't my thing. It wasn't. I have to be creative. I have to be creative all the time. And when you're playing live, you can't be creative. It's just it becomes a job, and it becomes um, I can't find the word now. Routine. Yeah, it becomes
Oh
a
yeah.
routine, and I hate that. I hate being on stage and, oh, then he's going there and then he's going to do that and then I do that, and really the 100th time, 100th time you play a song, you really, there's no feeling anymore. So that's why I started the Ayreon project, and I always said I'm never going to do this live, and also it's not possible to do it live. And then in 2015, my manager at the time, she also did a lot of theater, and she was like, I need a challenge. And I was like, well, I got this album, The Human Equation, which would be great as a theater play. Why don't you make a theater play? And that kind of grew out of hand. I got involved, and suddenly we were like, let's do the album live in a theater.
Mm.
And I didn't know if it was possible, but then you start contacting the people, like James Labrie, and he immediately said, "Of course, I'll do it." It's an ambition of mine to act, and I love the album, so I'll be there. And as soon as James Labrie said yes, we were like, okay, then we need the whole cast. We need the whole original cast, which we got. We got the whole original cast, except Devin Townsend, of course. I mean, I didn't even try. He was not going to do it. No, and especially the keyboard player Joost van der Broek. He's the real genius behind it. He really got the music together, and got the band together with me. And well, then we did these 4 shows or not we, basically my manager, I wasn't directly involved, did these 4 shows with Human Equation, and they were sold out in a day. And I saw the shows and I was like, oh my God, it is possible to do Ayreon live.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a disaster, this theater shows. A lot went wrong with everything. The filming, the money, it was terrible. So then I was together with Joost. I was like, okay, we see now that it's possible. Let's do it well, let's work on it for 2 years and make the perfect show. And then in 2017, we did Ayreon Universe, which was totally over the top with bombs and huge screens and whatever, everything we think of, we put in that show. And again, we sold out within a day, 3 shows. And it was an amazing success.
Yeah.
That was really the start of like, okay, let's make this an event, every 2 years or something like that.
And the Ayreon Universe show, if I remember correctly, it's music from a whole number of different records, and not an
Right.
effort to do like one continuous story.
No. I really wanted to do a best of, and not just pick one album.
Yeah.
So
yeah, boy, I got to see that next time you boot that up. Although it'll probably be in Europe, so I'll have to fly. I'm in Seattle.
okay, yeah. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, touring is out of the question for me, really. And
Yeah.
this theater where we do it, or this show, this place where we do it, is like less than an hour from here. So just driving there, and then when the show is over, I go home again, and that's the way for this boring old recluse.
Hey, you found an approach that works. Don't mess with
it works, yeah, definitely.
So the most recent, you did this thing with the past couple of records, I think, where you've kind of moved away from the narrative construct for most of the prior Ayreon records and started something new. Yeah.
Yeah. Now and then I do an album which is totally different. Basically, every album I do is always a reaction to the album before. I
Okay.
never want to repeat myself. And we go back to bands like AC/DC. I couldn't do that. Every album I make has to be like something totally different. the one I did before. So yeah, at some point that whole Ayreon story started evolving, and it started getting very complicated. I mean, it was so complicated that the fans knew the story better than me. You know, I had to contact them. So what about this forever? And what about this alpha world? And how was? Oh yeah, and the whole timeline, of course, with time travel. You know, the whole chronology of time is it's so complicated. So yeah, every now and then, like with the human equation, I was like, okay, let's, instead of going out into the universe, let go inside a man's head. And it was a story about someone who was in a coma and who was fighting with his demons, with his emotions, basically.
Yeah.
So all the characters portrayed an emotion. And again, you know, I call up the singers and ask them, which emotion would you want to be? And yeah, I believe in letting the singers very free. You know, the more free they are, the better they will perform.
I noted when I was reading about your work that there are times that you will actually leave the lyrical part to the vocalist. Is that only with certain projects?
It's if they really want to. Like
Okay.
I heard Devin Townsend's stuff, and I was really, it was for me the discovery of the decennium. I loved it so much, and I really wanted him on the album, but he doesn't guest on albums, you know. And he told me to, no, I don't do other people's music. And I was like, yeah, but you know, I need to have you on the album, and you can do everything. You can come up with your own melodies, you can come up with your own lyrics. And I convinced him. At some point he was like,
Yeah.
okay, if I'm that free, you know, I'm gonna do it. So yeah, sometimes singers like Jonas Renkse of Catatonia, he was really bent on making the melodies himself. And if I think they can do a better job than me, which Devin Townsend definitely did. I mean, if you hear my demos and you compare it with what Devin did with it, you know, it's so much better what they did. So if they can do a better job than me, yeah, then of course, you know,
Sure.
if it makes the album better, then let's do it.
Now, on your most recent Arjen record, Transitus, you did a couple of interesting things. There was a 25-page comic book. As was this basically to tell the story that is told in the record?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a question. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
With every album, I want to do something special. And I already told you I never read a book in my life, which is awful. And it's even more awful that I used to love comics, you know, like Spider-Man and stuff like that, and creepy and whatever. So yeah, it's always been a dream, basically, to do my own comic book.
Yeah, I
And
think it's really cool.
cool. And it was really a challenge, you know, like setting this all up myself. Like, okay, what's going to be in the first frame and the second frame, and how we're going to connect that, and what are they going to say? And it was very cool working on that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really ambitious creative extension.
Yeah, it's a year of work.
Yeah.
Again, you know, it's not something I just do in 2 weeks and here you go, you know.
Yeah.
I have to really work on it for a year together with the artist. And I'm a horrible perfectionist. And I always tell everyone that I start to work with, like, you're going to hate me, you know. But right now, you maybe think I'm a nice guy, but I'm such a perfectionist. You know, I want everything to be perfect. And some people can handle it, some people don't, you know. There are some people who want to kill me probably, but
Well, it underscores a really great compliment that you paid Russell then, because when I was talking to him and preparing for our chat, I came across the note that he was one of the few vocalists you allowed to record without you needing to be present.
I know. It's very hard for me to do that, because when I have a singer in my studio, I always get a good result.
Yeah.
You know, even if it doesn't work, we're like, let's try the melody like this, and I grab my guitar. Yeah, let's do this. Let's put a harmony on it. Let's sing it an octave lower, and you always work it out. But if singers send me their parts, their tracks, which happened on the first Ayreon, and it was really like I was like, it's not good enough, you know. And either you resolve it or you don't, which is terrible. You have to tell a singer this is not going to work. And that happened to me a couple of times in the beginning, and it was awful. So I decided, like, okay, I want the singers in my studio. I'm going to fly them over, record them myself.
Yeah.
But you know, hearing Russell, it was like, oh my, this guy. I think he's the best in the world, really.
Yeah.
You know,
I think
and
he makes a strong argument for holding that position.
yes, yes. So I was like, yeah, man, this guy can do it.
Yeah. No,
And
you,
I remember he played it to me on the phone. It was Dawn of a Million Souls, and also had Michael Romeo play solo. And
oh, nice.
it was, I think, before the internet. Yeah, so he called me up and he played it through the phone, and I was cried my eyes out. I mean, the way he sang that, so powerful, so bluesy, so much soul,
Yeah.
and it was so much better than I expected. And also Michael's solo. Um, yeah, that was that. It could be perfect. Yeah. So
Well, you've also on this most recent record, you've got Tommy Karavik from Camelot playing one of the lead roles.
yeah.
I'm actually talking to Tommy next week. I
Oh,
find,
cool. Great, great.
yeah,
Lovely guy. Good
I
friend.
I find him to be really quite remarkable as a
He's
vocalist
up
for
there with
sure,
Russell. He's up there with Russell for
and
sure.
live, he has a certain presence that is
True.
a cut above most vocalists.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
So I'm very that's I haven't heard too much of Transitus yet, so that's one I'm going to be digging into, because I know you've got Satriani on there and Marty Friedman and some other guys, right?
Right.
Helping you do guitar tracks. Um, we're gosh, Arjen, we're running out of time, and there's you have such an ambitious and
What time is
exhaustive
it?
career.
Well, now
Um,
I understand your 7 year, 7 hour interview with Russell. Time flies, man.
time flies, it does, and but so let me do this. If because there's
Can
so
go
many
on a
other.
bit longer if you done, if you're okay. So
Well, I actually have another interview
okay, cool,
that I've
cool,
scheduled, and I don't want to do short shrift to this. So,
sure,
but I also don't want to monopolize your time because you're such a busy musician. But what I would do if you were open to it, even if it was maybe just 30 minutes, would you be willing to come back on the show?
sure, man,
Um,
sure.
and we could focus. I mean, we probably still have some things to cover on Ayreon, but you've done. I think it's remarkable what you've done in addition to all of the Ayreon success with these side projects, because they're not. There are many musicians that do side projects, and I'm glad they do. But your side projects seem to have some extra meat and teeth to them. By which I mean they don't feel like side things. They feel like bona fide. And in fact,
Oh
one of them,
yes, oh
right?
yes.
You wrote music, you got the album, and then you backed away, and that band went forward with, I think, 3 more studio albums. Um, so the point I'm making is that these side things like Star One and Stream of Passion and Guilt Machine, these are big bona fide musical artistic endeavors, and I'd like to
Hmm.
spend some time on them.
Yeah, sure,
Um,
sure.
what I'd like to do is not um, take any of your chair and movie time, uh, and selfishly ask. I'll shoot you an email, and we'll
Yeah,
find a
sure,
time
man,
that works
sure,
with your schedule,
sure.
and we'll come back and there's some things I want to cover, so many of the side projects, and then there's some other things I want to chat with you about. And I think we've had such good reaction that everybody would love to hear more from you, if that's okay.
Great, great. Yeah, no, no problem, man. Sure.
Okay. Well, sir, it's been an honor. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, really,
Yeah,
really.
illuminating for me. And I'll spend some more time talking to you about this next time. But I love that you have really developed this craft of music storytelling. I think it has a unique power, and I don't think it's often done well enough. You are a high practitioner in this regard. So I will go into that a little bit more when we speak again. So I will find a time that works conveniently for you,
Sure.
and then for everybody that sees this, we will be sure to let everybody know to tune in next time when we will go further with Arjen Lucassen.
Great, man.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Thank you, sir. You have a wonderful
You're very
evening.
welcome. You're very
And
welcome. You too. A beautiful day.
yeah,
And please say hi to
yeah, that's right.
Tommy for me tomorrow.
I will. I will.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you so
yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say hello.
Yeah,
All right,
please do.
sir. You have a good
Okay,
day.
man. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Bye
Bye,
bye.
man. Bye.